Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amazing You, to another great episode on our YouTube and podcast channel. This is the space where stories of resilience, transformation, and hope come alive. And here we share powerful journeys that remind us that even in the challenging moments, there is a path to hope and triumph. I am your host. My name is Dr. Rani Thanacoody. I am a clinical hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy method. I am a mouse business life and relationship coach, breathwork coach, tarot reader, past life regression practitioner, and compassion practitioner. And I would like to say a huge thank you to the audience who have been watching and listening for the past 5 years. And to anybody who is new today, welcome to the channel. So today I am very excited to introduce you to my really special guest who has reached out to me, and I am very grateful for him contacting me because both of us, we have been co-authored on the same book, The Art of Connection. So I would like to welcome Mike Van Pelt. Mike, a man's mentor, author, he's a speaker and a podcaster devoted to strengthening the masculine heart and restoring purpose-driven leadership in men. Mike is the author of True Men, True Ways, a roadmap of discovery to the masculine heart, and he is also a contributing author to Cracking the Rich Code Book 2, where his powerful chapter, which is called The Power of Asking for Help, challenges men to move beyond isolation and embrace growth through humility, faith, and brotherhood. And through his work, Mike calls men to lead with conviction, live with integrity, and build lives grounded in God, family, and lasting impact. So let's dive in and welcome Mike to the channel. So warm welcome to Amazing You, Mike.
Dr. Rani, thank you so much. You made me sound really important there.
Mike, you are important. Yes, you are.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so grateful to meet you and so glad we were able to do it through a collaborative book partnership. That's just totally awesome.
Yes, it's so beautiful that's why these kind of communities are important, because we can reach out to the network that we have. We have a large pool of network, and the people that we meet are wonderful, wonderful, heart-minded people. So I am very, very grateful and honored to have you. So I want to know, Mike, a bit more briefly about your story, Mike.
My story. Well, do we have 2 days? No, we don't have 2 days. No, that's okay. I've got, for me, even getting to this point where I would meet you really started by me losing my identity or not having my identity and not knowing whose my identity was really in. You see, like a lot of men, when we meet each other, we commonly say, "What's your name?" And then what do you do? And our identity is tied to our job. And I went through a period of time where Mike didn't know what he wanted to do when he grew up. And so I had to figure it all out. And for a while, my wife said, stay home with the kids. I got this. She was a senior level job and we were doing fine. And she said, Mike, figure out what you want to do. Figure out what you want to do and stay home with the kids. And I did that, and I hired a coach because I love coaches. I think that, there are periods in life where we need somebody to help walk through life with us so that we can figure out where we want to go. And for me, I realized that I'd already been talking with my 2 young children about the importance of education in school. And they were really young back then. And I thought to myself, geez, you didn't finish your college degree. You're going to look like a hypocrite if you keep talking about the importance of education and you don't be the example. And so I went back and I completed my undergraduate degree. And while I was doing that, I got very heavily involved in our church volunteering and very heavily involved in the community volunteering. And when I got done with my degree, I thought, well, I want to go out and get a job. And it was met with just absolute crickets. And I thought, you've been volunteering. What do these leaders in these volunteer nonprofit organizations have that you don't have outside of experience? And some of them had master's degrees. And so I decided, well, you're on a roll. Why don't you get your master's degree? So I got my master's degree, continued doing a lot of volunteering. Really, my feeling was that it was going to lead me towards being a leader in the nonprofit space. I love nonprofits, and I love the work that they do. And once I had completed my master's degree and I'd done all this body of volunteer, been on boards and done all this stuff, I went back out to the job market. And again, I was met with crickets and it crushed me. And I began to internalize the no's and really that feeling of, well, I'm not worthy. Nobody wants me. Those little things that you say to yourself. And I really took some time to understand, where was I at? I knew I had the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and the people that I served with in these nonprofit boards really liked the work that I did. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. And I started out in a business consulting role, and I met a man at a networking group. And we decided that we were going to start our own networking group, but it led towards a men's small group. We never got the networking group off. It turned into a men's small group. And it was really, him and I were on the same mission because we felt like that there was more to life than we were feeling. And we didn't understand what that was. And so we began to seek out other spiritual leaders in the men's space and understand, what are you guys working on? What are you reading? Where are you going? How can we? And we formed our own men's small group. And it somehow landed me at a men's retreat. And it was on that very weekend where I really realized what I was missing. It was on a Saturday morning. They played a worship song. And it was during that worship song that God really spoke into me and said, I want an intimate relationship with you. You're my beloved son. And I did not know, even though I'd been a Christian my entire life, I did not know that that level of intimacy was available. And it changed my life on the spot. And I began to really dive into, okay, if something like this just happened to me, did it happen with anybody else? Has it happened with anybody else? Where do these men go rather than isolating themselves to meet other men and to talk about these experiences? And so that was really the birth of what became True Man Life Coaching. And it was they began to evolve from there, where I started a podcast, the True Man Podcast, wrote the book, and it's led to speaking and just meeting the most amazing people. But probably most importantly is understanding that my identity is not tied to what I do, and really it's tied to my God transformed my life. And everything that has transpired since that moment and gaining that understanding has just totally changed my life and put it on a whole other trajectory. And I've never looked back. And I guess if I have to say one thing to men, not that I know that there's some secret, I don't have a secret, but if I could give you a shortcut, would you take it? What happened to me and how I've even gotten to this spot. And, it's nice to live life without having to wear a mask and try to be something that you're not. And I lived a good portion of my life that way. And it's no fun. And a lot of people do that, both men and women, by the way.
Yes.
And it's no fun. And it's been the honor of my life to grow into this position and be able to help people and impact lives, because what I've realized, Ronnie, is that this isn't just about men. This is about helping families. This is about helping communities. This is about building relationships. And so it's far bigger than I am.
Wow. Mike, thank you so much for sharing such an inspiring journey by doing a lot of volunteer job that you did, and going back to uni, which is not easy, having a family, going back to uni, and starting your own men's group. And I think you are doing an immense job, like helping. When you help these men, you are helping, like you said, families,
Yeah.
communities, and today it's beautiful to see how open you are, and that you have found yourself through your journey with God, and looking within yourself
Yeah.
to understand who you are on that journey, that you are more than just this identity, this title, or what other people say you are, or what other people would say you can or cannot do, because we tie, a lot of us, we tie our identity to what our boss would think about us or would say to us, or the title. But this is nothing in the end. It's about what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about our faith in God.
Yeah.
And I love that you talk about helping men, because at this time, so many men, with the loss of jobs, with
Yeah.
AI coming, so many young boys do not have father figures, do not have a mentor, and so many men are completely lost with this world, with so much technology. They
Right.
have lost themselves. They lost themselves with the mobile and the technology.
Yeah.
They've lost the connection with the self and with the source. So the job that you are doing is fantastic, to help them, to bring them back to their source, to the real essence. And I love that you talk about the masculine heart. I would love you to tell us, what does strengthening the masculine heart truly mean to you in today's world?
It's a great question, because here's what I've learned is this. You get to define what the masculine heart is for yourself. As a mentor and a coach, what I help do is guide you there by asking powerful questions. I'm a big believer that we all have what we need inside of us. Now, there's a lot of self-development involved in that. There's a lot of, I'm going to go look in the mirror now and see if I like what I see. And if you don't, are you willing to do the work? And, you're probably going to get off to a rocky start there. At least I did. But most people, sadly, will not take action on themselves. And that action begins by looking in the mirror. What's gone on in the past? What trauma, what hurt, what's held you back? And then what are you going to do to overcome it? Because through the power of God and through the power of our own minds, we have the ability to become whatever it is that we want to become in a very powerful and positive way. And it's all about mindset. Everything starts with mindset. So, example, people will say all the time, I'm going to go on a diet. Well, that's really begins with mindset. So, and mindset in terms of food eating starts with habits. And so you're going to have to look at your habits. Are your habits good or bad? Why do you go to the pantry when you're walking by and just grab something out of there and stick it in your mouth? If those are your habits, you may have some, weight that you need to take off. But you need to look at those habits. And all of life is that way. If people go through life thinking everything's busy or it's hard, well, then it's busy and it's hard. That's just the way you set yourself up for that. And so what is the masculine heart? The masculine heart, I always say, people ask me, what do you do? I said, well, I help men get out of their head and into their heart. So women are very good at this. Women like to be in group and they like to talk and they have more intimate conversations. Guys are fixers. We're fixers. We think we need to fix everything. And the first thing we need to probably fix is us. But that begins by really connecting with your heart and loving yourself first. Because if you don't love yourself first and you don't love where you're at, you're going to have a very difficult time being present with your wife or your kids or any of your loved ones. And so when we can get more in touch with our heart, we can have better and closer relationships with the people around us. And that's probably going to start with you not just looking in the mirror, like I mentioned, but you may have to ask for help and find somebody that can help you progress faster. And when you're willing to ask for help and you're willing to go to people, it's amazing what'll happen when you get around the right people. I love, I've been around athletics all my life. I've been around a lot of great coaches and teachers. To this day, I have a number of teachers and coaches. So for example, I love to golf. I have a golf coach. I am a speaker. You can't do that on your own and be the best. I have a speaking coach. I've had a podcast coach. I've had a life coach. I've had spiritual coaches. Why do I do that? Well, there are a lot of things I'm capable of. Most of them are mediocre at best. But through the help of coaching and having a fresh set of eyes on everything I'm doing, they can help me better my best and become the best version of me. And I can't help anybody be the best version of themselves and get them to 2.0 if I'm not the best version of me. And so I am in constant self-development mode. And that's what and curious about what's around the next corner. Who can I meet? What can I read? What do I need to develop to get better? And it's, to me, that's a much more fun place to be in than just being mediocre.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. I love everything that you said. So many powerful golden nuggets, and you talk about mindset, which is so important in our world to work on our mindset, because we think all sorts of things and we say all sorts of negative things to ourselves. So cultivating a positive mindset, it's how we think, but also what we say, what we read,
Yep.
what we think. All these are so important because all these condition our lives and condition us to become who we want to be. Because in the Bible, there's a verse that said, life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what we say, what we think, it's very, very powerful. It can give you a positive life, or it can give you a very depressed life.
Yeah,
Right?
our thoughts have tremendous power. The words we use a lot of words. Most of them are kind of cliche, as a matter of fact. But we use a lot of words and phrases that really have no meaning. And as a result, we're saying things oftentimes without realizing what we're saying. And so there are a number of words and phrases that I have used throughout my life. And if I'm talking with one of my coaches and one of those words or phrases comes up, they have permission to stop me and correct me. Yes. Because I don't want that negativity holding me back or having power over me. And I think people, if they really took an inventory of their deeds, of the things they say and do, they would probably be shocked at some of the
That's
things that they're doing and saying that is holding them back. Their self-imposed limitations, they may not even know that are there.
mhm.
And so, when you get around great people that are on the same page as you and rowing the boat in the same direction, and you all have permission to speak into that, your life becomes incredibly powerful.
I 100% agree with what you said. And you talk about something else. You talk about men are so much in their head, and that is true. Nowadays, men are always thinking of the next strategy in the world of
Yeah.
work, and they want to achieve more, get more, which is important for men to be active and think. But then they forget that part, the most important organ, which is our heart. Because that's where our hidden treasures are, our hidden gifts. It's our intuition that will guide us. And I had a client once, he used to be in his head. He was so much in his head that he was always anxious. And that was giving him depression, which is normal, when you stay stuck in the head. And because the looping thoughts keep coming back and back and back. So when one day he tried that exercise to listen to his heart, and he did it a few times, he told me he was making better decisions. He said, wow, he couldn't believe it, that when he listened to that heart, the decision he was making was much more intentional, much more peaceful, and better decision that was making him more happy. So I think that's a great point. But you also said that women are good at being in their heart. We've been, because of how the corporate world is, many women as well are becoming too much in the head because they want to achieve and achieve. They are becoming so masculine that they forget
Yeah.
to become feminine and lose the connection with the heart.
That
So
is really, really important for people to understand. I'm so glad you brought that up. I have an
yeah,
interesting perspective of this,
yeah,
primarily because my wife
mhm,
has been at the C level of companies here in the United States. And so I have been on the receiving end of a phone call when our kids were young. Now, our kids, I just had a son graduate from college and my daughter's in college, so they're older now. But I've been on the receiving end of a phone call when they were young that went something along this line: Mike, I need you to go get the kids because I can't leave this meeting. I will look like the mommy. Or she has been treated like the administrative assistant in some of the groups, even though she was at the C level. I've seen my wife not get paid the same amount as her male peers. And so I've seen her have to work harder in some cases, and she's worked her tail off to be successful. I'm extremely proud of her, but I've had a very unique perspective to see a woman at a senior level of an organization's really try to maneuver around, in a lot of cases, in a man's world. you know and so I've been able to see this very closely, and I think one of the things that I'm talking a lot about, Ronnie, now these days is not just about the power of asking for help, but we've really kind of moved that into there's a summit that I'm working on right now that we're calling the American Family Renaissance. And the reason we're doing that is we feel like we've lost sight of the basic strategies that really allowed the United States to be great, which is God, family, and country. And so when we lose sight of that, as husbands and wives, our families suffer. And we just can't be the family nuclear unit that we need to be. And because of the cost of everything, it takes two people virtually in this world to make it in a household these days. But the problem is the family is suffering as a result. So I've had the unique opportunity, if you will, to see this, on my side as a man and see, my wife go through what she's gone through. And she's been incredibly successful. I'm really, really proud of everything she's accomplished. But it's a different world. It's a tough thing to maneuver around in corporate America and be successful.
Absolutely. And I've heard of so many women CEOs. I have talked to so many of them who achieve very high positions, but then experience burnout and had to leave. So it is very, very common because we are not built to be in that doing, achieving all the time. We are here to be in our feminine energy, to relax and to do
Yeah.
things at our own time. And your wife she is very lucky to have a very understanding husband like you, because when a woman has work in the corporate world, but when she comes back home, she has a husband who understands, that helps her come back to her feminine energy when she gets home.
I
So
think I understand.
so that's why she's been able to continuing being successful in the corporate world, because most women who are in the corporate world, many of them are alone doing that, not having the
Yeah.
support they need at home, you see.
I think, what the part of the reason that we made it work is that we had an understanding. I don't know that it was anything that we ever really talked about, but that we were in partnership. That, if we were going to be there for our children and allow our children to be successful, that we had to work as a unit. And, I'm not going to, I hope this doesn't come across like I'm tooting my own horn or anything, but, our son just graduated from college. Our daughter is getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in musical theater and three minors at the same time. And she was able to do that because she was so successful in high school. She went to college with all these credits. And we get the most incredible comments about our kids all the time. And, I think that started with the recognition that it was important for us as a family unit to have challenging conversations with our kids from an early on, because here's the thing, and here's a I like to call them true man tips. Here's a true man tip for everybody. If you're not having hard conversations with your kids, they're having them someplace, and if they're not having them with you, you may not like the outcome, because you might not like who else they're getting that information from. Not to mention social media and all the horrible things that they get online. But I think, Ronnie, what we recognized really early on was that we needed to work together if we were going to make it work. Just because of our schedules and everything that we were doing, and somehow we pulled it off. And our kids, I'm so proud of them too. I mean, they've just done so well for themselves, and they're doing great. And needless to say, I talk with a lot of men, and I hear a lot of stories, and I just feel so grateful that my kids have turned out and done so well for themselves. We've really had very few problems compared to a lot of people.
Yes, I think what you said is very true, to have this hard conversation with the family, because otherwise, like you said, they will go out and have it somewhere else. And I think it's important to be genuine and authentic with your family, with yourself, and then with your family,
Yeah.
because that will help the children as well to see the role models and know that they have people at home where they feel safe, where they feel heard, and where they feel seen. And when they have that kind of safe space, that allows them the possibility to achieve anything that they want, because they have that unit where they can come and brainstorm and bounce each other questions and discuss. And that helped them as well in terms of creating more safety within themselves and more alignment in their body, in their nervous system. So I think that's really beautiful that you did that. And I'm not surprised that your children are so successful because of the safety of the family that so many kids, I would say, Mike, haven't had in their life and do
No, they
have.
there's a deficit there, and you
Yeah.
mentioned this earlier, specifically about men. So a lot of men that I work with, they have not had a I'm going to start with a man and then work my way to father. Haven't had a man in their life
Mm.
to help them, and maybe we could say father. They haven't had a father present. They've had an absent father.
Yes.
Divorce is skyrocketed, and
Mm.
so that causes a lot of challenges in the family unit. But if a boy grows up, without a father, there's a missing piece there. And, even to this day, I'm 56 years old. If my mentor or my father says they're proud of me, I darn near want to curl up in the fetal position. I'm just giggling and so excited, right? It makes me feel good.
Mm.
And we all want to be seen, heard, and loved.
Yes.
And if we didn't get that from a male role model, and our daughters are going to be attracted to what they see in your house. So if you're not showing up well, guess what's going to happen? And so, as a father of a son and a daughter, and of course, I love both my children equally, but I'd probably go to war for my daughter. It's just different.
Mm.
I don't know how to describe it, but you know, um, you so you if you haven't had that man in your house and there's a void in your heart, you really need to find some other men to get around because I've had conversations with everybody from 18-year old guys to 80-year-old guys. And I got to say, it looks a little different, but they're both looking for the same thing.
Mm.
And I don't think there's anything better than having that companionship of another male who's lived a little bit and can provide you some worldly wisdom.
Mm.
It's just unmistakable. And so if you can get that from your own father, that's the best. If you can get it from a grandfather, that's good. If you can get that from another man who's willing to mentor you, that's awesome as well. And I think that's one thing that I really want to encourage men to do is to start communities where they can get around other men and hear from other men and gain wisdom. Because, if you can do that, you're going to catapult yourself.
Yes.
And you're going to learn something from somebody that you didn't have that in your tool belt.
Yeah.
And I at this point in my life, when I hear something wise, I cannot wait to pass it on. Yeah, chances are the next person that's in front of me is going to get some sage advice from somebody that I just talked to because I'm so excited and I want to pass it on. And that's what gaining wisdom is all about. Because what's the point of having wisdom if you can't pass it on? And so I just really encourage men to seek out other men's groups or to start men's groups where you're asking more than inch deep questions and really learning from each other. And it's been a life changer for me.
Mm. Oh, Mike, talking to you, it's like golden nuggets keep coming out from you, and I don't know where to start. There's so many great things. So I want to come back a little bit to when you talk about something very interesting. You talk about having a coach. I love that.
Yeah.
You said you have had so many different types of coaches in your life. And I have experienced that as well. And now I have a spiritual coach. But having a coach, oh my God, it's priceless to have that time, whether it's a man or a woman
Yeah.
coach, whoever you can have, because they give you a different perspective from what you can see. You know, it's like they expand your mind to see bigger, to think
Yeah.
bigger. And I would say it is something priceless. Investing in yourself,
Yeah.
investing in a coach is the best thing you could ever do. If I would say to the audience, if Mike and I, we didn't invest in ourselves in finding coaches to help us, we wouldn't be here on this podcast,
Oh,
you know?
100%.
Yes.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So I would highly suggest people, men, women, anybody, if you feel lost, go and find yourself. If you want to reach out to Mike, feel free. Or if you find somebody that you like, a coach that you resonate with, you know, so that's important too. So find someone you can feel comfortable to have that relationship. It's so important. Yes. And you talk about also about um, when we talk about safety in the family, and you raise a very good point that when children, because children, they will see what is happening in their family,
Yeah.
they will see what is familiar, and if they had those parents, those role models in the family who were safe place to go to express themselves, they will go out in the world and then have great relationships with bosses, with partners, with friends. But if they haven't had that, if they come from an abusive family or a dysfunctional family, or unavailable parents, they will go with what is familiar unconsciously, and they will attract those kind of unavailable partners. And I have seen that, Mike, in my
Yeah.
hypnotherapy session, where clients tell me, I can't have a partner, I don't understand, I keep repeating the pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable partners. And then when we look back, they say, when I ask questions, they say, I have a beautiful childhood. I say, okay. But then when we look back, the father was emotionally unavailable. He was a great dad. He provided financially, but he couldn't understand the needs of these children, their emotions. And that's a big piece for children. That's very important. Having this emotional connection, not only financial, but parents need to devote their time emotionally as well, because that will create safety in the body of the child. The child needs safety because for them, the children, their parents is their God. That's all they know. And they can't regulate their nervous system. So they need a safe parent, a calm parent to help them in doing that, in understanding and hearing that. So whoever parents that you are listening, if you are not feeling that safe within yourself, to find a coach, find somebody to help you. Like Mike said, it's so important. And that's why the power of asking for help, where the book chapter
There it
came from.
is.
So tell us
Yeah.
more about your book chapter, Mike, please.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I wrote this chapter, it was part of a collaboration book, and it was a little bit about me because what happened to me when I was 6 years old. I was the teacher that I had at the time recognized that I was going cross-eyed, and so I end up at the eye doctor, and they do an eye test, and the doctor said, "Well, hey, what do you see when you look in the camera?" And I said, "Well, it looks like the moon is jumping over the cow." And he laughed and said, "No, the cow's jumping over the moon." And so, it's kind of a funny story, but it was also a moment where I felt stupid. And so what happened was I had astigmatism, so I had to go into glasses. And in 1976, that was unusual. Nowadays, it's pretty normal. They get to this stuff really quick. But back then, I was one of maybe a handful of kids in school that wore glasses. And I was also very introverted. And so if you're introverted And then the adults would come up to me. It wasn't the bullying that got me, by the way. It was the adults that would come up to me and say, "Man, those glasses make you look smart." Well, if you look smart and you're introverted, you can't ask questions. And so I stopped asking a lot of questions. I was exceptionally quiet. And when you do that, you kind of fall behind. And so I recognize now in my adult life that I'm very curious. I ask a lot of questions and I'm really digging for a lot of answers. And, the more I explored this, I would get out and I would talk with people and I would hear their stories about not asking for help or feeling isolated or alone. And people don't ask for help for a number of different reasons: fear, shame. They don't want anybody to know that they don't know, all of these things. But really, what that creates is a weightiness inside of us that is really, hard to escape. And ultimately, if you're not asking for help and really trying to develop yourself, well, you're going to fall behind. And where I've seen it fall behind the most is in our relationships, right? We grow up and we decide we're going to get married, and then we wonder why we don't have relationships with our wife or our husband or with our children or our coworkers. Men especially, we bury all this stuff and we hope we never have to deal with it, but we always have to deal with it. And typically it shows up in the relationships. And so the power of asking for help is really a lot of stories around that. And also asking a lot of questions throughout that talk that I do, really to get people thinking about the importance of asking for help and asking deep questions, not just of themselves, but of the world around them. And I got to say, and I'm saying this because I just recorded a podcast for myself where I was really talking about the division in this world. And I think a lot of the division in this world stems from the fact that we don't ask questions. We're not curious. We just pick a side and we stick with it. And so it really creates a tremendous amount of division. And, we see this going on throughout the world, sadly, where everybody just picks a side and yells at each other. And I got to say that I think the world would be a much nicer place, a much more grateful place, a much more loving place if we just asked for help and we were curious and we just listened and cared about the person that was in front of us and just was present with them and heard what they had to say. You may not agree with what they have to say. You may not like what they have to say, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation. And, along the way, you may learn something you didn't know, and so the power of asking for help is something I think that a lot of us struggle with, for a number of different reasons. And so it's a lot of fun to begin talking about and just hearing what are other people's stories, what have they run into by being isolated. And we live in the most connected society we ever have been, with the internet, with our phones. Yet, oddly enough, if you look at the statistics, it says we're more lonely than we ever have been. Suicide, way up. Middle-aged men in America, highest age bracket for committing suicide. Women try it more often, but men choose lethal means to end it immediately. And so, you look at suicide, you look at these things, and they're all, for the most part, due to loneliness. And typically people that are lonely are not asking for help. They're isolating themselves. And isolation, typically never good.
No, it creates depression, anxiety, leads to suicide. That's so true, everything that you said. And we live in, it's interesting that we live in such a world that we are connected so much to the internet, but we have lost the connection to source,
Yes.
to ourselves, And I think it's time now that we start to build that connection, to come back to who we are and ask ourselves questions. Like through coaching, you will have a coach that will ask you questions that will help you to go back and ask and be curious about yourself, because we have lost that ability to be curious about our own self. We have suppressed. I think it is a lot to do with the society that we live in as well, that have
Yeah.
made us become like robots, you know,
Yeah,
and
yes,
and
yes.
stop
Yeah.
asking questions, because so many rules and regulations being set everywhere that people have stopped asking, and there's so much fear being created as well. And when
Yeah.
there is fear, people will not ask questions. People will suppress, stay quiet, and that will inside. We are meant to express who we are, and if we suppress everything inside, then it's going to go somewhere in the body, go in the head, in the body. So I think it's very, very important and to express ourselves. But in the society that we live, like you said, men tend to feel isolated and lonely. It could be something to do also. I am asking you, and you can tell me what you think of that, that men have been taught by, in terms of the culture, that they have to be strong, they have
Yeah.
not to show their feelings,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite, as it turns
Mm-hmm.
out. So I grew up playing sports, and if you fell running to first base, the first thing the guys around you would tell you to do is just get up and run it out, and don't say
Mm,
out, right?
yes.
Just rub it out. And what that although that's an innocent example,
Mm,
those things have a funny way of supplanting in our unconscious, and they build and build and build and build. And so then we begin thinking to ourselves, well, I can't show emotion, and I need to be stoic. And it turns out that really what is happening in that case is you're masking things, and then you adopt. At least this is what happens to me, and turns out I guess I'm more normal than that. There's this saying out there that in sales I used to hear all the time when I was younger: fake it until you make it. Well, that couldn't be anything further from the truth. I mean, when you start faking it, when you start wearing a mask in all areas of your life, things are going to suffer.
mm,
And your emotions are very real.
mm,
And it's important to recognize those remote emotions, because, what this gets into is when you don't have a connection with your emotions, you will react to situations rather than respond. And the typical reaction, at least for the male world, is we get angry.
mm.
That is a reaction, not a response. And if you get angry and you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, the next thing you know, you're at the attorney's office signing divorce documents. you know, and and so the idea of controlling your emotions, it's just like going to the doctor. If they give you a medication and they'll say, oh, they responded favorably, right? If they gave you a medication and you didn't react favorably, they'll say you reacted, you didn't respond well, and so we have to understand that our emotions are about responding and reacting. And you want to be able to respond. As a husband and a wife unit, if you're not responding to each other, there's probably something going on there, and even with your kids. And so it's critically important to understand your emotions and be in touch with them. And I'll say this: I think that's incredibly masculine, in my view, to be in touch with your emotions. And some people would say, well, that's not a man's man. Yes, it is.
Mm.
It very much is,
Yeah.
because you'll be a man's man. You're just going to be in touch with your emotions. And I can tell you this, everybody around you is going to be better as a result.
Yes. Wow, Mike, that's so important thing that you touch now, emotions, you know? And I have learned that in hypnotherapy because that's what clients come to me with because they have suppressed their emotions. And that's what we do in
Yeah.
therapy. We help them to feel those emotions, to release them, not only to feel them, to understand those beliefs, where they come from, those emotions, and to release. And that's when the healing happens, when they are
Yep.
able to release those stuck emotions. And one of my teacher used to say, and she saw that in a hospital in the UK. She said the feelings that cannot express themselves in tears may cause the internal organs to weep. Because where will those
Mm.
feelings go? You know, if we can't express them, they go inside. So, and I know they cause something like if I as a child, I could not express myself and I had throat issues. But when I started to heal, now I can speak on podcasts. You know, it's
Right.
like I express myself. You know, it's like those emotions, we have to feel them. That my teacher, Marisa Peer, she said, feel your emotions until they are no longer required to be felt. It's about
Ooh,
feeling,
I
men or
like
women.
that.
Yes, it's about feeling. That's what makes us human, you know? Otherwise, we will be a robot if we couldn't feel. So we, men or women, we have to feel our emotions, and that's our humanness. And we
I
have to be careful not to lose that and become robots because with AI, we can easily lose our emotions.
yeah, yeah. I hope that doesn't happen, but
I hope not
you
to.
know,
I hope not to. And my last question, it's been so interesting, so beautiful conversation with you. And my two last questions before we end, Mike. What advice would you give to young men navigating identity and purpose today?
I think find a mentor, find a sage man, somebody older than you that has walked a mile down the road, and seek them out and sit with them and ask them questions and gain advice and wisdom from somebody who's lived a minute.
That's very wise. Yes, thank you. And my last question to you, Mike, where can the listeners and the viewers find out more about you, about your books, and about your work and your program?
Well, the best place to go is my website, truemanlifecoaching.com. On that website, I've got a book page. You can connect to the podcast. You can get on my calendar. Very soon, my speaking page is on there. So if you're looking for men's events, and actually, I shouldn't just say men's events. That would be really, I commonly say to people, yeah, men are my primary clients, but women should be my best referral partner. Like, what woman doesn't want their man to be the best man they can be, best father and all that? But all my speaking, my books, all of that's on my website at truemanlifecoaching.com. Definitely the best resource. And you can connect on my social media from that platform as well.
Thank you. Any final message you want to leave the audience today, Mike?
I think we have a real opportunity, or you have a real opportunity to take control of your life by having a direct connection, to God first and foremost. I would encourage you to pick up a Bible and read Scripture, but also encourage you to get involved in your own self development. Invest in yourself, and it'll be the best decision that you ever made. And start reading, start listening to positive material, and it will begin to transform your life. You are capable of being your version 2.0, but it starts with you.
Mike, thank you so much for taking your time to be here, for sharing your wisdom, your inspiring words. And I would like to wish you a lot of success in everything that you do. And I would also say thank you to the audience for watching, sharing, and subscribing. And remember that you are amazing. You have always been amazing, and you always will be amazing. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.